but you're going nowhere. Don't blame me for what you've done, because I know that you were having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Don't you just walk away. That's when I'll say.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast. I'm Tom Clary, and I'm your host. I'm a real estate agent right here in the beautiful state of California, Los Angeles to be exact. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Bruno. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Good. Any news out there or anything going on with you?
Yeah.
Any news in your world?
Well, so all the rage right now is Bitcoin.
This seems to be like a mania. It's like, I think it's reached mania stage, actually.
It has.
Where people are starting to freak out about something that they don't even understand.
Right. And why not buy it when it's, priced 20 times higher than it was
right.
at the beginning of the year.
In the span of 1 week.
I mean,
right?
That makes all the sense to jump in with both feet.
What's funny is that I'm one of those guys who would literally be like watching my the news on my phone. Let's say I buy a stock or something like that, and I'm looking at it hourly to see okay, is it up? Oh, is it down? Is it up? Is it down? Can you imagine the anxiety that I'd be feeling if I got into Bitcoin when it was like at 12 grand or whatever, and it went up to 18 grand and then it collapses to 15? I'd be like riding a roller coaster that was probably the scariest roller coaster I've ever been on. Right?
Oh, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
What's the latest?
Well, the latest is, so first of all, it started at the beginning of the year at about $1,000 and it's now climbed to $19,000.
So it's appreciated a little. It's kind of gone up.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. I was, looking at a couple of articles, number one, the Winklevi, right? You remember that? The Winklevi
two-headed
twins?
beast.
The Winklevi. Exactly. So they got in and they got in, I think in as early as possible, right? So sometime like 2013, before everything was even, getting into that area. And they,
by the way, that's kind of interesting. Let me just pause here for a second.
Yeah.
That to be on the forefront of two humongous things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that they were at the birth of Facebook, even though it turned out how it turned out. And if you watch the movie, you kind of see how that all turned out.
Yeah.
It's basically the Hollywood version of it.
Screwed. Yeah.
They got screwed or whatever.
Right.
But to have been involved at all.
Yeah.
That early in that kind of thing,
well,
it shows some sort of
they basically started
knowledge.
The market. They started the market, right?
Yeah.
So they were one of the pioneers,
yeah.
And they sunk in about $11 million.
Whoa!
And they were calculating. I was looking at it in Bloomberg, and they said their stake's worth about $1.3 billion.
Holy mother!
As a result of that initial investment,
dear Lord!
If they were to cash out
and
everything,
it's probably going up. It's going up even more now.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and their take on it is that it's going to be a replacement for gold. Right?
I could see that
because it has a market.
Right.
It's not tied to the dollar. It's not tied to a specific government. It's not tied to the yuan or any of those. It's a community.
Right.
Right. So and what's interesting is so the articles we put on our Alexa, right? So we have an Alexa skills on the Clarified Realty Podcast, Real Estate Daily. There were two articles. So number one was talking about how there is a tenant in New York that is now offering, starting next year, that the tenants can actually pay their rent in Bitcoin.
You mean like a property manager or
Correct.
some sort of that is like they're willing to act as a middleman with Bitcoin. Basically, they'll take your tenant's money, Bitcoin, put it into cash, and then pay the landlord.
Exactly. So they use an intermediary that converts it at that moment.
Right.
Because it's so volatile.
Second. Yeah.
Because you might not be able to make your rent if Bitcoin sinks to the ground.
Right.
So they do that conversion, and then it's just paid that way. And what I found kind of humorous about the article is that there's lots of landlords that want to offer this.
Yeah.
Zero tenant interest.
Really, zero.
Zero.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they market it with avocado toast for millennials. Who knows? Who knows? But in this particular case, it's pretty early. But
I mean, it's such a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you kind of have to jump in full, like, neck deep in order to really to buy what it's going to be. You know what I mean? You have to sell the Kool-Aid that they're making.
Well, and I used to be a former financial advisor. So, and the second article was talking about how they're actual people, and there was, somebody at the congressional level that was, that was cautioning people. Yeah. They were saying that people are actually taking out mortgages. Yeah. Right. And taking it out so they could buy Bitcoin. Right. Or that they were, taking their investment portfolio and liquidating and just, going all in. Right. And that's the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life. Right. Right. I mean, anytime you have a highly speculative investment, especially one that doesn't have the backing, right? When you buy a stock, at least you understand what the earnings are. It's a public company. You have all of those records right there in front of you. But Bitcoin, it's based on faith. Right. Right.
It really is. But wouldn't you say most currencies are anyway? Any kind of fiat currency, or basically, your faith in that nation or that faith in that economic system is what you base your investment in. I mean, isn't that really what we're...
Yeah. And that is true. But one angle to that is, just imagine if ISIS all of a sudden just cornered the market on Bitcoin, or they somehow were able to infiltrate and take everybody's Bitcoins away. Right. Where essentially killed the market. Right. Or completely controlled it, rendering it absolutely useless. Right. There's no control. Right. There's not.
It's Wild Wild West.
It's very much a Wild Wild West. So, if someone were to tell me, hey, I wanted to cash out refi because I want to go out and buy Bitcoin, then I'd say, wow, you might want to talk to a financial advisor about that. Right. I'm happy to help you, but, do you really want to concentrate your assets in something that doesn't really, isn't a sure bet, right? It's highly speculative. So, that's kind of interesting from those two stories.
And I'll tell you something, that I have a very cursory kind of idea of what's going on. I mean, I will never pretend that I'm some sort of expert on Bitcoin here, right? But what's fascinating is that, number one, that there's other types of cryptocurrency as well. Yeah. You have like Litecoin, I think it is, and Ethereum, and all these other ones, and they're kind of. I'm curious to see what happens when Bitcoin, reaches its top. What is that?
The apex?
The apex, or whatever it is, right? And basically, are they going to? Is that what is it? A rising tide rises
lifts all boats.
Lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. Are the other ones going to rise along with it? Maybe. Who knows? Right. But at some point, But I will say, number two, what does fascinate me, fascinate me is the concept of the blockchain. And the idea of this, if this, then that, in terms of keeping, right now we have these intermediaries in the banks and all that, finding a way to have that kind of process of if this, then that completely circumvents them. Mm-hmm. And it takes them out of the process. What happens to banks at that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Do we see? I mean, I think it's such an insane kind of concept.
Well, it's funny. I was watching a financial advisor, a friend of mine. He had a video. He did a Facebook Live video, and on there, what was interesting, I didn't even know this, but apparently Bitcoin started from microtransactions within video games.
Oh yeah,
I know. Whole concept.
When they found the guy who actually invented it, right? Mm-hmm. He was some sort of computer science guy. And he just, was kind of like...
He wanted to upgrade his sword or his shield and whatever, Zelda or whatever the game was.
I want a mod for Minecraft. I want to be able to, And that's kind of insane that it could change the world like it
Absolutely.
Could.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm we're obviously tracking it from a real estate perspective, right? So right now you can't pay your down payment on a loan with Bitcoin.
Right. Well, and I would say that I'm actually more interested in the blockchain aspect of that and doing an entire transaction between a buyer and a seller where lenders, sorry sir, don't get involved, or where it's basically literally the process is completely done in cyberspace.
Right.
So it's a very weird frontier that
we'll be watching it for sure.
Absolutely. So today I want to go on a little bit of a rant. I think it's something that I've been noticing a lot more in whether it be the news and just talking to people who are potential clients. And it's something that's really concerning me. And it's something that I really want to get off my chest. And I think it's something that is really important to the real estate industry as a whole. And I think that it was important enough to kind of focus on this in one single episode about how there is a severe, in my impression, lack of integrity in the real estate industry. And what do I mean by that? I think that there's a feeling amongst people who are potential buyers where they don't even want to get us involved. They don't even want to get real estate agents involved. They don't want to get lenders like yourself involved. And I think that getting us involved sooner than later is so important. So anything that keeps them away from us, anything that kind of, whatever reason, I think that there's this perception that real estate agents are hucksters, that real estate agents are, glorified door openers who are only interested in selling the people that are who are supposed to be their clients, right? That we're somehow just trying to get your business, right? And I think that is something that is pervasive amongst the entire industry. I totally see it happening. And I really want to give my audience the ability to kind of see what that looks like. Give it a little bit of a snapshot so that if you do see that happening, that you can avoid it. So that you can find an agent that you can trust, an agent that can be a protector agent to you, that is going to make sure that you get through the process on the other side in a safe manner. And it's not just trying to make sure that you close so that you're just moving on to the next thing, right? So here's what I'm thinking. That basically, you have what I call the three different levels of agents. You have the weak agents, what I call the TWAs. We've talked about this on other podcasts. If you go to episode 1, I describe it more in depth. But there's the TWAs, the weak agents, who are the agents that are literally wet behind the ears. They've never done a single deal, right? But what they have been trained how to do, right? They haven't been trained in the actual real estate process. They haven't actually been out there doing transactions. But what they do have, they have training on how to trap you into becoming their client, okay? That's the only thing that they've actually been trained in by their brokerage, okay? So there's that level. And then you have the next one, which is the TSAs, which are the salesperson agents. These are the folks who are only, like, they look at you and it's like, those old cartoons where they saw, like, where the dog sees, like, the cat and it turns into, like, the turkey, that's been, all cooked for Thanksgiving. Like, that's how they see you. Every single time they look at you, they're only seeing their bottom line and their commission at the end of the day. All right? And then the last batch are the TPAs, which are, I like to consider myself a protector agent. My job is to make sure that when you get to the other side, you feel that the process has been a positive one. You feel that it's something that you felt engaged, that you felt that you learned from the process, and you never, when you walk into your house at the end of the day, right, you don't feel like you just bought a mortgage payment. You feel like you're walking into a home and you just feel relaxed and you feel like that was a great decision for you to make. And I think that at the bottom of it all, I should never, as your agent, be a salesperson to you, right? I don't ever think that I should be trying to sell you on a house. I don't think I should have to sell you on me, right? I hope that through my actions, you're able to see that I have the knowledge, that I have the ability. I've been through the process. I've climbed the mountain before, so I know what the hell I'm doing, okay? So I don't have to sell myself to you, right? And I think that there's a lot of agents that are focused on selling themselves to you, or that they're just doing sales, period. And it's just, I think, a way of dealing with the business that is transactional. It has nothing to do with you, and your real situation, right? Now, listen, don't get me wrong. I should be selling you as a buyer to the seller. That's the only way that I should be a salesperson. I shouldn't be selling myself to you. Now, there are times when I'm on the listing agent side where I am selling a house. That's different, right? Where I'm marketing the house and I am selling that house. But when we're going to focus just primarily on buyers today and how buyers are not, that you're not just a target for somebody to make their sales quota for the month, okay? So that's really what I want to talk about today and find ways that you can avoid that at all costs. Right, Ron?
Yeah, exactly. And, what I was going to jump in is, so what I see out there, because I'm working with realtors on a regular basis, is I see 3 levels in an agent's career, right? So you have, you mentioned the weak agent, right?
Right.
So you have the people that are brand new. Right. So these are people that have transitioned from one career, or they might be fresh out of college, right? And they decided they wanted to become a realtor and they just received their license. And, their goal is to get anybody, right? So
No.
they're out there knocking on doors. So they, all of the different sales courses out there, they say you need to go door knock, right? You need to build a funnel. You need to build a pipeline,
right?
You need to, just spray and pray,
yeah,
right? You have to do all of these things to generate business. Then the next level are you have these agents that they've made it out of those initial training programs, right? So they've made it past those initial hurdles. They've done a couple of transactions and they're growing. They're actively growing their practice, right? And then you finally have those established agents, and the established agents, they may not be working directly with buyers. They may have reached a point in their career where...
And we'll get to that. Because that's one of the things that, you've got to actually be very careful and look out for are the agents that have a name. They're usually the face that you see on the bus stop, right?
Right.
They're the ones, they've made enough success that they can build a quote-unquote team, right? But that's when you have to start being incredibly careful. And we'll get to that.
Yeah, so they have all the experience in the world. And yes, they may be able to, protect you, what have you, but what usually happens is they send you to a buyer's agent that's brand new. Right. So they send you to person, that's back in the first camp, right? With someone who's new. And the other aspect is, when you look at an agent who's growing, if they're just focused on listings and they're not actually actively going out and working with buyers, and they just take you out one or two times and they just put you on a drip campaign, and they just only focus on the listing side of things, then that's not serving you well either.
Their focus is someplace else.
That's right. So they're trying to, they take the mantras, buyers are liars, and all of these things where, if you're not doing listings, you're not in business,
right?
And they only focus on listings,
right?
So you have to be careful at all three stages.
You're getting short sheeted. I mean, basically, you're getting the short end of that stick, basically.
That's right. So, it's not just trying to find a realtor. You want to find a buyer's agent that has experience and that does have the time and focus and attention that truly represents you.
And that's not to say that someone who represents buyers cannot do listings. We're not saying that. We're saying the folks that spend all of their resources to make sure that they're on the other side of the coin, to make sure that they've got a big, pool of houses that are just, constantly being put up on the market. And that takes an enormous amount of resources and energy in order to do that. And it ain't taking you around to every single house, every single Saturday, Sunday, Friday, whatever. That takes way too much of their time, and they're not going to waste it on you, basically.
Exactly.
So let's start off with the people who are early in the real estate career. Okay, so they say that there's over 50,000 real estate agents here in the state of California. That means 1 in every 47 people or something like that is a real estate agent. Okay, and here's the thing. It's something I'm hearing quite a bit of, and it's something that everybody needs to be very careful about. When you have that many agents, folks want to say, well, I've got a sister who's a real estate agent, or I've got a friend who's a real estate agent. But what I've been hearing more and more, and Ron, you can back me up on this, is that folks are coming up to me and going, but they're not a full-time agent. They don't actually spend their entire time being a real estate agent. They, work in a Starbucks from 9 to whatever, and then whenever they have some spare time, they get out there and they knock on doors, or they're a part-time real estate agent.
Right. Well, it takes time, right? So when you're starting out and you're starting from scratch, it's just like any other profession. I mean, as a realtor, it's commission only.
Yeah.
Right. You don't get a base. You don't unless you join a team and they, that's somehow part of your compensation. But it's kind of like being an actor, right? So you work in restaurants, you wait tables,
gig to gig.
Yeah, you go from gig to gig, and the key is to hook a certain number of people so that you can build a funnel and then drive from there. And there's nothing wrong with starting. I mean, we all start.
Everybody starts.
Everybody starts.
We're not saying that, right?
No. So everyone has a starting place, but
the question is that do you really want to be the guinea pig?
Well, right. So
do you really want to every single time that you go out and they're putting in an offer on your house, you're tense because you don't know whether or not they're going to actually, read the contract right, or they know what to do when there's a request for repairs, or, all these other things that only happens from doing the process a few times.
It's the same thing as having a 14-year-old as a life coach.
Well, yeah. And you know what this is right? Actually the comparison that I was thinking about just earlier today is that imagine that you had a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the 5 or whatever 6 years that they went to college / medical school or whatever and did other internship and all that, the only thing they ever learned was how to get patients.
Right.
right? Would you? Is that who you would want to go to if you had brain surgery?
No.
Oh, but he's got a lot of people in his waiting room.
I'm falling off the couch here while you're saying that. I mean, because Karen had a pretty big surgery recently, and
Karen, your wife,
my wife, yes, thank you. So it was very important that the doctor had experience with
you would
this.
think, right?
Right.
They've done it once or twice.
Exactly. This wasn't their first surgery.
Right.
And they fortunately told us that they haven't lost anyone, which is always a great sign. If they said, well, we're going to wing it and we'll see what happens, that probably doesn't give a lot of confidence.
Right.
But yes, it's not a buying a home. It's not a life or death situation, but it certainly involves a lot of money.
And it can really, you can end up hurting yourself in very significant ways.
Yeah.
And the things that can come back and haunt you if the agent isn't looking out for your best interest, or not even looking out for your best interest, doesn't know what your best interest is at any specific moment, you could end up getting into lawsuits. You could end up losing your deposit. There are all sorts of dangers along the way. And we're talking about, your deposit for the average, transaction is 3%. That's a significant amount of money. When it's like I'm off the top of my head, when it's like a $600,000 or whatever, that's in the $20,000, and you could flush that right down the toilet.
Absolutely.
If the person doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Exactly. I mean, when I was first starting out in lending, I had to partner with people, right? I had a team that I worked with.
Yeah.
And I had to have that handoff because when clients would have started to ask, okay, what happens at this stage? What happens at this stage? If I couldn't articulate that and I just winged it, I just wouldn't represent the team.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. That's not how you do things, right?
Well, and the more that you feel like somebody's in the driver's seat, the better it is for you, right? But that doesn't mean that you're not able to go make a left, make a right. We're not saying that, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit, because that's another thing that you should be feeling, is that you should feel like you are in control of where you go, right?
Correct.
But there should be a driver. So
absolutely.
who is you don't think is going to go into oncoming traffic, right? That knows the general rules of the road.
Right. Well, it's funny. I mean, there's a Realtor forum that Tom and I both follow. I'm not going to mention the name, but there was an agent, like literally an agent actually wrote this.
I can't even believe it.
Which shocked me. And the only reason I found out was because another agent had actually posted it as a public listing and blocked out her name.
Right.
But apparently she said, "Help! I have no idea what I am doing. I'm meeting with these buyers for the first time, and they're buying X sort of property. Does anyone have any general advice?"
That's a real. Can you imagine being the client on that side?
Oh my God!
And if I had known that my agent was saying that, I would be so frightened.
That's crazy. Like, how
it's
in the
insane.
world? I mean, partner with somebody.
Yeah, get together with someone who can guide you, or can at least give it to that person and be a part of that transaction.
Learn.
So you learn. So the next time that comes around, that you're not completely in the weeds.
Exactly.
But let's talk a little bit about how, when folks are training, what they do in order to get clients. It's important for you guys to understand this, because if you find yourself in these situations, you can kind of sniff and smell and see that this person is probably someone that I don't want to get into bed with. And so what I was kind of getting at when I was talking about how 1 in 47 or whatever are agents, that means there's a lot of new agents out there. And one of the things that they do when they're first starting with their careers is they get into open houses. Basically, the whole thing is that I got to get as many open houses as I can, where they're the person sitting there when you first walk in.
So it's not their listing.
It's not their listing, right? It's somebody else's house. That's a misconception I think a lot of people have when they walk into a house and they see someone sitting there with the brochures and the 10 bottles of water and whatever, and it's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" and that kind of stuff. That's their listing. I would say probably 8 out of 10, it's not their listing.
Right.
It's the listing agent has brought in a buyer's agent to sit at that desk or sit at that table or whatever, the kitchen table.
Because the listing agent's down in Laguna with his family.
They've already moved on in their career where they don't have to work their weekends.
Exactly.
Right? So basically you've got this newbie sitting there, and their one goal, the one thing that they want to do before you leave that house, is to get your information. Right? Why is that? Because they're going to put you on what's called a drip campaign. And that drip campaign is going to hit you once a week. Well, actually, there are times where it's going to hit you every single day for the first couple weeks, because that's, they know that when you walked in through that door, you're at least thinking about it. you're at least thinking, the percentages are good that you're thinking about being a buyer. So they're going to do everything they can to, strut their stuff and basically put you on this email marketing campaign that's just going to fill your email with junk, right? And try and get you to go with them as your agent. I mean, that's one of the things that I always talk about when I have clients. I say, listen, if you're going to go to an open house, right, I'm going to generally go with you to every single house that you go to. But if you let's say we can't make our schedules meet or something like that, I'm totally cool with my clients going to open houses all by themselves. But I give them a stack of my cards, and they're like get out of jail free cards. Okay? Because here's the thing. The realtor, honor among thieves thing is that we can't grab each other as clients. Okay?
Right.
So if I give them these cards and they walk in and they say, Tom is my agent, here's his card, that agent can't get your information. They can't do anything to try and get you to be their client. And so it avoids a lot of headaches and a lot of this crazy junk mail stuff that, it's just a pain in the ass.
So one of the things I was going to say is that, Tom and I, we have a Lunch and Learn series over at WeWorks, and we did one in September, and we're going to have another one in Culver City in February. And, purposefully at the beginning is we're going to take the sign-in sheet. We're going to ask everybody to put, sign their name and their email. And
whatever information we can pump out of them.
Whatever information we pump out of them. And then right before we begin our presentation, we're going to rip it up.
We're going to rip it up. And we say,
right?
What are you stupid?
Like, why would you
give me all of this information?
Exactly. And the point is, we're there to engage you at that particular moment. We are there to really show you our stuff, to really show that we know what we're talking about. And if you choose to work with us, then great, we can exchange information.
We'll maybe pass around that sign-up form again afterwards, after you've had the ability to know, look, we're not going to inundate you with stuff. We're just, if you want to freely give us your information, we'll be more than happy to stay in touch with you and connect with you and really show you good quality of service. But we're not going to try and lure you into using us.
Exactly. And I used to work in marketing, right? So it's all about, trying to build a funnel. And, the traditional models have been, okay, you get their information. And, that initial contact, who cares? It doesn't matter if it was piss poor or, if it was mediocre. Who gives a shit? It's really about, what is that? Just capturing their information. And then, we have marketing teams behind us, and we're going to send drip campaigns, and we're going to send marketing brochures, and we're going to invite them to all these different events and all this stuff, right? Until we get to that point where we either beat that person into submission,
right,
and they feel they don't have any other options,
right,
or you get a restraining order against them,
right, exactly,
right, and that's just a horrible way how to do business.
And it was funny because when we first did this Lunch and Learn, we had someone come in who was like a very contrarian guy, right? Who, I don't know, we told them and on the introduction for everything, we told them what it was going to be about. We knew it was going to be about. I remember that dude. Yeah. And this dude walked in and he started talking about, well, there's nothing wrong with sales.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with, why are you making it that sales is a bad thing? And when it hasn't, guys, listen, what we're talking about here is if that was the case, we wouldn't have had all the other people sitting there. People don't want to be, every single time they open their email to have another, email from someone that they don't want to hear from. They don't want to get calls that they didn't ask for. There wouldn't be a do not call list if there wasn't a reason for it, right? So that's, we're not against sales, period. We're just saying that people should want that sale. It shouldn't be kind of forced upon them.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is, and this is going to kind of get into the next phase of things, right? So you still have the the weak agents, the newer agents, and that's all they know because they haven't had the experience. So they regurgitate the information that has been taught to them by whatever agency that they're working for, and it draws them in, and they're starting they sound more like whatever is on that marketing piece. But as you get to learn and as you grow in your education, now you're becoming more of a consultant, right? So I never ever feel that I'm selling my client.
You're adding value to their life.
I'm giving them information, right, and they're making their own choices.
Absolutely.
And when you get to that second phase for those agents that are growing their practice, and they might be focusing just on listings, what is really where you look at the integrity of those particular agents.
It's truly, and by the way, we'll get to a little deeper into the quote unquote salesperson agents, but it's certainly when they get to that stage of their career, it's kind of like the fork in the road. right? They can make the choice to go to that left-hand side that is crooked and craggy and is very hard to walk, where it's basically that you're a consultant, that you're adding value to people's lives. You're trying to never be forcing anything on that person, or they go on the other side where they're the true salesperson agent,
right?
And it's literally it's a numbers game, and you're just trying to you're a glad hander. You're tricking people with scripts, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it can really go either way for the salesperson.
Yeah. So when you're younger, and I'm going to use a movie analogy, but you're just batting the bunny, right? You're just batting the bunny, and then when you get to that point in your career where you've passed those initial hurdles, you have these big claws, right? And the idea is that you can continue to nurture that client, knowing now you have more knowledge about the process and be a true consultant, or you can just be this ravage beast, right? And just take it down.
It's a choice that you make.
That's a choice that you make.
So another thing that can sometimes be a little bit of real estate trickery here is you have your friends who are real estate agents, or your family, or whatever it is, and they're new, and they're new. You know that they couldn't have had their license for like 3 to 4 months, okay? And all of a sudden, you go on their Instagram account and you see this gorgeous picture of a house, right? And or the backyard of a house, or the beautiful bedroom of a house, and you go, and it has something along the lines of, boy, wouldn't you like to be here right now, kind of thing, right? And you're kind of like, there's a part of it's like on, wow, they're doing pretty good.
Which one Wednesday?
What was that?
Which one Wednesday?
Was that?
Right? Which fixture do you want in your house?
Yeah,
right. They give you two options.
Right. Which one do you want? Because, like that's some sort of, right, like they're trying to pull off that, they're trying to make you think that is their listing. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make you think. And that's the other thing about the open houses, like we talked about, right? You'll see on their Instagram account, or you'll see on their Facebook account where it says, hey, come visit me at my open house. Right? Come see me at my open house. It's on Sunday at 11 o'clock. But it's not their listing.
Right.
It's not their house.
Right.
Okay.
And they use the hashtags, right? So they $1 million buyer, $1 million listing.
Right.
All of these catchphrases
right.
that it's puffery.
Right. Unless they actually come by and say, come by and see my listing, right? Or some sort of language like that. You can pretty much guess that they're just trying to pull off, that they're trying to make you think that it's their listing, right? I mean, that's something we've seen a lot.
No, I see it all the time. I have an Instagram account, and it's really funny. I mean, before last year, the people that I primarily worked with were referral partners, right? So I would work with CPAs and attorneys and financial advisors and all of that, and I would work with their clients. And I wasn't really vocal. I wasn't really out there because I didn't feel that I had eclipsed that point in my career where I almost got to a point where I could, almost be a preacher, right? Where I could actually speak intelligently and be able to, in mass, be able to help educate and do things like this, right? And where I realize now is, I've come to that point where I've gone through enough of those deals like you, right? Yeah. So, you've been battle tested, you've seen every scenario that's under the sun. You pretty much have a good idea of what's going to happen with that transaction before it even starts.
Right. Doesn't mean that you don't, feel concerned, and you don't feel like you're constantly watching out to make sure that the car stays on the road and things like that. But you're not necessarily like concerned that you're going to have to go on a Facebook group and say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Exactly.
What the heck am I supposed to do here?
Right. Exactly. And I never went out and held myself out as I'm a top lender and I'm I'm a $1 million producer, because it wasn't true.
Right.
It wasn't true. And it's absolutely fine to be able to document your rise with in the business. Everyone has social media. Our little phone is a studio in your pocket. So it's cool to be able to share those wins and share those successes, but make it real. Right? Make it real. Like, hey, I'm filling out CAR forms, right? California Association of Realtor forms. Or I'm here with Lauren, and she's my transaction coordinator, and we're working together on a particular deal.
Right.
Or I'm out, representing my buyers, and it's a
and people
a nice
sometimes
family.
And they engage with that because it's the reality of it. But what we're talking about is people trying to fake it, really trying to put things out there that they don't own, that are not really theirs, and misleading you as a potential client.
Oh yeah.
And we want to make sure that you don't get caught up in that. That is something you should also be aware of. That's another way of making you think that agent is something that they're not yet.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I there's an agent that just, for giggles, I connected with a guy, never talked to him, but he's out there. He's always showing pictures of him at the gym and showing these huge listings and saying, come check out all the active listings in West Hollywood or in Bel Air, and you could be here. And I looked at his production, and the guy sold like one house.
Yeah, and what's hysterical is there are sometimes, and I feel terrible for thinking this, but when I see these images, I feel like, putting in the comment section, oh, that's fantastic that you got that listing. Right? Or to see if they actually will say, well, it's not my listing. Or, will they be honest? Right?
Right.
And that's a way you can test it, is
Absolutely.
if you see that gorgeous listing or that gorgeous picture from Architectural Digest or whatever that they're trying to imply was their listing, saying something along the lines of, oh, that's gorgeous. That's your listing? Mm-hmm. Let's see what they have to say. Another thing I want to talk about is when you go by, you're driving through a neighborhood, and this is not necessarily new agents. It can also be the next level, the salesperson agent. But let's just say that it's right now in that level, the new agent level. That you're driving through a neighborhood, and you see a house for sale, right? You see the sign out front, and you go, oh, there's a phone number on there. Let's just let me give that a call and see what's what they say. Well, then in order for them, first of all, you're not going to get through to that person at that moment, right? Because that's okay, but that's normal. They're not always sitting by their phone or whatever, right? But what's happening is that you have to put in your phone number in order to actually get the information that you're trying to get. Well, then they capture that information. They then get it. Let's say it's one of those big team guys, right? One of those guys who's got a lot of listings. He's going to hand it off to his buyer agent, and that buyer agent's going to be giving you a call. It's not going to be necessarily that person who's going to give you the call. And they're going to say, hey, they're going to try and get as much information. 9 times out of 10, and especially in this market, that house is already sold. Right? So if you're calling and you're asking about it, probably if it's been up for more than a week, it's probably in escrow already. But they're going to say, well, that one's sold. Are you interested in anything else around that area? Right? And I'd be happy to take you out. The next thing you know, you're once again getting inundated. You're getting phone calls that you don't really want to get. And so I would say just be cautious when you are calling on those sign calls, because that's another way that agents will get your information, capture you, and get you into their marketing pipeline. So it's just something to be aware of. One more thing about the new agents. Look, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a really good chance that you're really trying to become educated and really trying to understand the real estate process on a deeper level. You want to make sure that when you go out there and you're going out to buy your house, that you're understanding it on another level. You're far and above the folks who basically just kind of throw themselves at realtors and lenders like Ron and basically are saying, just take care of me. Please just take care of me. I don't want to even think about. No, you're actually getting involved in the process and all that. And then they have these. So there are folks out there that take advantage of that that heightened level of wanting to know what's going on, and they create these things that are called new home buyer seminars. And it's basically, we're going to teach you all about the how to buy a house. But here's the trick, and here's the thing. It's for the most part, those folks that are doing that are not really seasoned. They're probably folks who have only been in the real estate business for a very short period of time. And here they are standing in front of you, trying to tell you what you need to do in order to buy a house, okay? They've been taught, once again, these things by, from all their, that's the only training that they've gotten from their brokerage probably, is how to do these seminars so that you can get out, they'll get you into their pipeline and they can start marketing you. They can sell to you, all right? So I would make sure that even though if you do go to one of those, and I'm not going to say that I don't endorse them. I want everybody to be as educated as possible. So if there's a negative side of this thing, this one's a not so negative side. I want folks to be educated. So if these things, you'll probably learn something there, which is not a bad thing. But also be cautious if they try to give you the sales pitch of being your agent, that you're asking them very important questions like, how long have you been an agent? How long have you been an agent? How many sales have you done this year? How much experience do you actually have in the trenches? right? Because that's incredibly important. There have been many times that we've talked about on this podcast where we hear a news story where it says, oh, prices or this or that and all that. And I go, wait a minute, hold on a second. I'm out there. That's not true. I can actually say I've spent enough time in the trenches to know what's actually happening. The folks who are doing these new home buyer seminars, they could very well be just theoretical. It has nothing at all to do with the real world. And the next thing you know, you're being kind of pushed and shoved once again, put into a pipeline, and you're thinking, well, they sounded like they knew what they were talking about, but you have no real world application of it. They could very well just be, just a newbie that had, a training to know what to say when you ask certain questions.
Absolutely. I mean, so a lot of I've done tons of new home buyer seminars,
right?
Just because I like to support my agents.
Of course.
And, what I've found is, my company, they give me this nice little template and they said, okay, here's the template to use for new home buyer seminars. But I don't actually use all of those slides, right? Because what marketing has done is they have designed these slides and the content inside to draw you in, right? So it talks about the strength of the company, and then it talks about how many loans that have been funded, and then it talks about what's happening with interest rates going up, and they're trying to draw you in so that you feel compelled that you need to act immediately.
Well, and somehow magically everything that's a problem that's going on in the world is somehow solved by either them or the agency that they're a part of.
Exactly.
Somehow it's a coincidence. I mean, how crazy.
Yeah. So it's designed to draw you into this funnel, right? So where you feel that, wow, I have to work with this person, I have to work with that company, and, I need to immediately start looking at homes, and I need to go out there. And, the challenge, and I've brought this case up many times before on the podcast, is, you have to run. I mean, not just walk, run away from agents that the first step after one of those home buyer seminar is let's go out and let's look at homes.
Yeah, let's get in the car. Let's go take a look.
That scares the bejesus out of me because what it's doing, it is setting up that transaction for disaster. Yeah. Right? I mean, you could be that that one case out of 50 where everything's fine, right? And you can afford whatever you want, right? And you're the in and out heiress. Right? Who just sold her home for $19 million over in Bradbury, I just saw. And you never have to worry about everything is available to you. But not everybody's in that position. Yeah. So if you go out, start telling people that, oh yeah, we're qualified. We talked to a bank and we can afford $1 million, and then that agent just takes it at face value without looking at the pre-approval or calling the lender, then they're putting you at risk because what's going to happen is you find out that you're only qualified for $600,000, right? And then you're going to start trying to get creative, and then you're going to say, well, wait a second, so what if we just get into escrow and then maybe we can work with our CPA and they can amend our returns, right, to show that extra income.
And there's real world danger there in that you've already spent money on it. Like you've already got in the transaction. You've probably already spent money on a number of inspections, an appraisal or whatever. You've already put that money into play.
Yeah, you call the movers, like
everything's moving.
Everything's moving forward. So you're like, okay, I have to make this decision. It may not be ethical. It may not be, within my moral compass, but I've already gone down that path.
It's just even worse. It's just at the tippy top of what you can afford, or even a little bit past it. Right? And so the next thing you do is for the next 30 years, you're sitting inside of a headache. You go to bed every single night inside of a headache that you have created for yourself because someone has been pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing instead of taking your entire situation into play, understanding you from the beginning to the end. They only wanted to make sure that they got the sale at the end of the day. Yeah. And now you're suffering. They're counting their money and you're suffering.
I mean, one of the things when I first got into the business, I came from the wealth management industry, and it was all about client service. And it was always about, there was always a solution for the client, and it was all about serving them and getting what they wanted. And, when I started bringing in deals, some of these people weren't really qualified. And, the people I was working with, they're like, look, we're not going to issue that pre-approval. We need to do the due diligence. And as a result, I learned the right way, right? And, there was that temptation where I would have agents that would say, hey, I need you to write the letter for this. And I'm like, wait a second, they don't qualify for that. right? But now I have no qualms, right? And the ones that I work with on a regular basis, like Tom, that is never a question. Right? It's like, oh, they don't qualify. All right, we need to readjust.
Then we'll make it work in some other way.
Make it work some other way, right? Maybe we look at the down payment assistance program.
We find another group of houses that it really fits them. And so that they don't have to be constantly on edge, that they're worrying whether or not the deal goes through. And if they're worried, even worse, that the deal does go through. That's even worse for them.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So, and you're not setting their expectations that they qualify for $1 million. If they qualify at 600, you start at 600. You don't start at $1 million. Get them excited about buying at that particular level. And people, they visualize, right? They anchor themselves. So when you tell somebody that they're pre-approved at $1 million, they're gonna believe you.
They're gonna believe you. They're gonna go.
And if you have to go back and then have to say, well, actually it's 600.
I hate to tell you,
that destroys a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just a matter of doing that extra due diligence. Right. And that's why it's important to, if you're working with a lender, you're working with a realtor, you want that person to be involved the entire time.
Right. But so much of that, and we're going to move on to the next level, but that so much of that can happen from someone who's inexperienced.
Yeah. Someone
who doesn't know that they shouldn't just be honest, that they shouldn't just be in black and white and tell their client, listen, it's much better for me to be honest with you and tell you the truth than to keep on, if you've only got one deal going, it's amazing what you'll be okay saying. It's really incredible when you can't make your rent because that one person that you've got might go away if you tell them the truth. Mm-hmm. You start to get people who are starting to compromise, and they're starting to make their, the ethics get a little bit shady just so that they can make that deal at the end of the month.
That's true. And on top of that, you also, even though that deal might not close because the inevitable, maybe there's a chance that it will, they'll just throw it in there so that they are able to tell their management they have something.
You're right.
Right? They have something in the funnel.
Yep.
And maybe it'll squeak out the other end and it'll turn into something, and it's worth it to just throw it in there. I mean, I've had agents that, they were new, and they didn't really respect the process. They didn't really want to respect the process. All they cared about was the commission check.
Right. Well, but most of the time for these part-time guys,
right,
it's literally what makes whether or not they can make the rent that month.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had to, babysit the transaction as a lender, right? Yeah. And trying to, navigate.
But not all lenders are going to do that.
No.
Not all lenders are going to, all they care about is the resources too that they're spending on it as well. If your agent can't handle the deal, if they don't have the resources to be able to hold them by the hand and walk them through it, mm-hmm. Who's going to suffer? It's not going to be that agent. It's going to be you as a client.
Exactly.
So
you're exactly right.
So the next step that we want to, the next level is what I call the TSAs, the salesperson agents. Now these are dastardly and in a completely different way, and something that everybody should be completely watching out for. The salesperson agent is basically the type of agent where they've got their experience, and they also have these scripts that they use in order to influence you in a manipulative kind of way. Right? They're only interested in making you say yes. Right? That's and if you think that I'm just kind of creating this, I can actually show you brokerages, and I'm talking about the big ones, that will actually write up scripts for them to memorize to trick you into saying, okay, I'll buy that house. I mean, it's these psychological little flow charts that literally says, if they say this, then you say that, then you say this, and then they say that. And it ends up with you going, okay, fine, I'll buy that house. And they are trained. It's drilled into them. I've been in these training sessions. I've actually seen people spend thousands of dollars in how to learn how to manipulate their clients into doing what they want them to do. And that's something that that's why a salesperson agent can be sometimes the most dangerous ones out there. Even sometimes worse than the weak agents, because they know what they're doing and they're still trying to get you to do something you don't want to do, or it's uncomfortable for you. And you can end up in a situation where you are buying a house that you wish you could get something better.
I was actually, early in my career, I was talking to some lenders, and these guys were, they were top producers and the whole thing. And, I think someone asked them, they said, out of all of these clients, I mean, you guys are closing all these deals. I mean, do you actually care? And they're like, we don't really care.
Yeah, it's true.
We don't care. It's
Right.
all about numbers.
Right.
Right. So you have the sharks that are out there, and all they care about are the numbers.
Right. And that's so.
They care about the trips. They care about seeing their name at the top of the board. And, absolutely, I'm marketing driven. I'm metric driven, all that kind of stuff. But if you don't care, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I was right before we recorded this podcast. I thought I'd do a little bit of kind of digging back into looking at some of these scripts that I'd seen over the past and all that. And I found one, and this is an actual script. I'm not going to name the brokerage that is actually doing this, right? But this is what happens if as a real estate agent, if my client says, you know what, I need to think about that house. Now, that seems like a very innocuous thing. Right? It's a lovely house. I want to think about it. Right? So this is the script. I'm going to read what it says that I'm supposed to say. Okay, ready? This is not me.
So this is like the real estate Wolf of Wall Street?
This is the real estate Wolf of Wall Street. Says, you're looking at this house today and you want to go home to, tonight and think about it. But what if there was another couple who saw this home yesterday and they thought about it last night? What if you lose this home? How will you feel if I call tomorrow and tell you that it's already sold to somebody else?
Oh, man.
Right?
I got to jump at that.
Can I tell you something?
Wow, you made me feel bad.
That you're giving pressure, right? The answer,
Yeah.
By the way, if someone says that I want to think about it, the answer is, sounds good to me.
Correct.
That's the correct answer.
Yes.
I want to think about it.
Great. When do you want me to follow up with you?
Great. Is there something, is there anything else I can do?
Right.
That's the answer to that question, not, what if there was some other family that looked at it yesterday and they're thinking about it last night and they're making the offer to, you know what? I mean, that's like one of the least dastardly ones that I've seen, right? There's other ones. I saw this other one that says, you've gone through all the choices out there on the market and you would agree that these 5 that you sent me were the absolute best out there, right? Well, maybe not.
Well, I thought you were only supposed to do 3. All the TV shows only show you 3.
Only 3, like House Hunters, right?
Exactly.
No, it's like, but it's like literally trying to put you into a corner. So you've got to say, well, I didn't, no. It's so funny. When I work with clients, I'm literally I've actually had clients apologize to me that it's taking too long, and I answer them, don't worry about it.
Right.
Listen, there's some times where it goes out and somebody sees the first house they see or the second house they see, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that I found it on my, my second, house. And we go and make an offer and it's done. Mm-hmm. If you're taking more and more time, that just means that I'm not trying to get you for that one house.
Right.
Right? I want you to come to me as a relationship, and you want to constantly coming back when I have a real estate question. If you have a real estate question, if you want to buy another house, or if you're looking to sell your house or whatever, I want to constantly be that person that you turn to. I want to be a trusted advisor. If you get into a house that I've somehow manipulated you into getting into, you're going to be, every single time you walk through that front door, you're going to say, God damn it, Tom. God damn it! Why did you trick me into getting? I didn't want this house. This one, I picked a 6 when I really wanted a 9 or a 10. That is not the way that you should be doing business.
Well, it's because they're thinking about their, and it's something, is reality, right? I mean, we're all commission focused. So, it is our bread and butter, if you will.
Of course.
And we
should get
there are
paid.
obligations.
We're not saying we
get paid.
shouldn't get paid.
No, but what I'm saying is that, what happens is you have to look at the big picture. You have to look beyond the transaction. You have to look at what you're actually doing, right? And you have to listen and you have to ask all the right questions. And, I've had this on the lending side where, there was a deal that was stuck and this actually happened. So this was an in-house lender for a realtor, and they're in the middle of the transaction, and the underwriter had dug in their heels. And for some reason, the documentation, the buyer wasn't able to get it over, right? So the realtor had said, hey, lender, can you send that to Ron? Right? I need to look and we need to double app it, right? Start a new application because he might be able to do the deal so we stay in escrow. That guy dug in his heels. He would not send a thing.
Yeah.
And he not only hurt his reputation. He destroyed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because he wouldn't send it over. Eventually we got the information, but man, he really shot himself in the foot.
Right.
Right? Because he was so adamant about, no, we're going to close it. We're going to close it. We're going to close it. And he didn't think beyond.
Right.
Right? He looked at his interests ahead of, what's in the best interest of the client.
Right.
And that happens all the time.
Right.
Right? Because people are transactionally focused versus relationship focused.
Right. And we spoke a little bit about this earlier, where you have the listing agents, right, who are the big agents. They're spending a lot of their time and energy and resources focusing on the listings. They're really not focusing on buyers at all, because they don't want the hassle of it. They really don't want the hassle of taking them around to different houses. It takes time out of their time that they can actually just sit there and sit at the house, not sit at the listing, because they don't do that either.
Right.
When they have a listing, you don't have to constantly going around showing people things. It spends a lot of your resources.
Absolutely.
Right. So they're listing predominantly, if not exclusively. So what they'll do is they'll have a team, a quote unquote team. And this team is a bunch of other, usually inexperienced agents, who they will go and say, okay, now take this person out, And so the next thing you know, so you've made this, this kind of commitment, because they'll also do, some of these guys will do these exclusive buyers contracts where it's like they get you to sign something that says when you go to buy your house, you're only going to buy from them.
Right.
And it gets you in for a certain period of time. I don't do those, because my feeling is that if you don't want to use me, if I haven't shown my value, then I don't want you to feel like you're tied to me just because of a piece of paper, right? I really feel that you should be with me because you think I'm the best, right? That's incredibly important to me. So that being said, what they'll do is they will give you off to this team member who is usually someone who's only, been, had their license for a month and a half to 2 months, whatever, maybe even a little bit longer, but they're not that person. So when you first have that meeting with that big producer, that person who has a lot of sales under their belt, the question to ask them is, when we go out, are you going to be showing me these properties?
Right.
It's that simple. And if their answer is anything other than, yep, I'm going to be the one that is letting you in that door every single time, then that person is not going to be that person. Okay? They are not going to be walking you through the process. And let me tell you something. There's a lot to be, they might say, well, I have these other team members who will take you to the different houses, but I will handle the transaction from beginning to end. Well, let me tell you something. There's a lot to be gleaned from going out there and seeing what your priorities are. When you walk a house with someone, you can really sense what is important to them and what is really, makes the difference in the transaction, right? And you can also see from house to house to house, if you haven't walked a property, how are you going to do the transaction to know what something's wrong or something's going on with the property? Or how are you going to even make an appropriate offer on that property if you haven't even seen it? It's somebody else. It's like the telephone game. Somebody else tells you, yeah, it's got 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, but they may not tell you that there's a room in the garage that that is an office or something like that. So because you didn't walk the property, you don't know anything about it. So always, if someone starts talking about how amazing their team is and they'll take you out, understand you are not going to be taken around by them. So that being said, moving on, what kind of agent should you be looking for? And that's what I like to call the TPA, the protector agent. And the protector agent is, it's funny. I kind of pulled this from something else that I heard, but I think it's so appropriate. And I talk about it in the first episode of this podcast, is that they're really the Sherpas of real estate, right? Now, Sherpas are those folks who help climbers get up Everest, the tallest peak in the world. And what do Sherpas do? They're constantly reducing the risk of the climb, right? They're always doing whatever they can possibly do to keep their clients, right? Because that's the other climbers are their clients. They're doing whatever they can to keep them safe, right? And I think that's incredibly important. The second is that they help carry the load. They've got strong backs. They've been up that mountain, and they understand what's important, right? And they understand what is going to help the process. And they're not above carrying it on their backs, making sure that they're part of that process. And the last thing is they comfort the client if things go wrong, right? And that's the thing that is so people don't understand about real estate transactions. 9 times out of 10, I've been in very few where nothing has gone wrong. Things are going to go wrong. No matter how good your agent is, something is going to be wrong. But how do they comfort you? How do they make sure that you're going to be safe through the process? That they're going to, if there's something that's a problem that's going to harm you, they fix it. They find a way to fix it and circumvent it or do something to go around it. That is a really good, I think, symbol of what a good real estate agent is. They really do those 3 things. And in a very good way. So let me just kind of go over the virtues of a very good protector agent, the ones, how to tell if you're talking to someone that is a TPA as compared to the other 2. And I think that one of the main things that they are going to start talking about from the very beginning is really setting up the correct pipeline. Really starting from the very beginning with getting you well qualified, getting you to talk to a lender first, right? Before they start, hey, let's get out there right now. Hey, here's my car. Let's go jump in and let's start looking at houses. No, they're actually looking at you from a whole picture. They're sending you to a very good lender, probably that they know, or they're making sure that the lender that you are already using is someone that is going to be able to do the job and get you across the finish line, right? So that's number one. They're going to and they're going to get you approved first. They're going to find out from the very beginning what you can afford. They're going to find out that if you do X, Y, and Z, that you're going to be able to close. Because at the end of the day, when I go to put in your offer, I have to be able to, with all confidence, go to that listing agent and say, we're good. We're going to cross this finish line, because that's the whole thing. It's not necessarily going to be whether or not they've got a higher offer or a lower offer. It's going to be, are they going to close? They might look at a higher offer and say, yeah, but it's only like 3% down, and I don't know if they're going to actually be able to close and all that kind of thing. And they'll look at you and they'll say, and your agent telling them, listen to me. Your client, when they go to sleep at night, they're going to sleep like little babies, because we know that you're going to close. And we're going to make sure that from the very beginning, right?
Right. And it's not just how much they can afford, but how much they qualify for.
Right.
Right. So they've actually been run through an automated underwriting system. They've been stress tested, have all the conversations, and the lender can articulate, when Tom makes an offer, I follow up with the agent and tell them how great that particular client is. And, not just that they're good, but, that, hey, they're putting X amount down. This, they've got a high FICO. This is the number. We're going to send this through Freddie Mac. It's, we're direct lenders. We're going to take 30 days to close, 21 on the loan contingency and 17 on the appraisal, right?
And so many of these new agents and so many of, the salesperson agents, well, the new agents, they don't know that they're supposed to do that.
No.
They don't even know that they're supposed to make sure to calm down the other side, to make sure that that's one of their primary jobs, is to make sure that the other side is calm and understands that why wouldn't they go with you?
Well, and they're also putting their buyers at risk if they have a lender that can't articulate the strength of that particular buyer and speak in terms of exactness, right? So something that is precise.
Yes.
Right? So when I actually make that call, it is precise numbers that I'm articulating to the other side to give them confidence that not only are they working with me and I know what I'm doing, but also that our buyer is well qualified.
Right.
Not that, yeah, dude, he's good, and oh yeah, he's rolling in it. Right? Like, that's not specific, and that doesn't give confidence to the seller.
Right. Now, the next step is that when you start to do the actual home search, if they start to kind of rush you, if you're feeling pressured, if you like those scripts that I talked about earlier, if you feel like you're somehow being forced into a decision that you don't want to make, then you should literally run away from that person. Make sure that they only see your backside. You are moving away from them. I will say that I'm a firm believer that there is no such thing as the glass slipper house. I really don't think that there's anything that's ever going to fit you 110%. There's always, if you get into the most beautiful Beverly Hills mansion, you're gonna walk into the laundry room and say, oh my God, I can't believe that they painted it red, or what I mean. There's nothing that's going to be 100% the perfect house. I believe that. But that being said, you should never feel like you're being forced to buy a house that you think is, I always say when I go into, after I come out of a house with someone, give me a number. I've actually started saying this, give me a number from 1 to 10, but you can't say 7. Okay. And what that does is that usually, because if you're feeling average about a house, you're going to say it's a 7, right? Which really puts you in the kind of situation where it's like, well, what do we do there? Right. But if you take away the 7, you'll either choose that it's lower than average, right? A D, right? Because the only option is 6 below, or you're going to say that it's 8 to 10, right? So if you're feeling like most of the time you're being pressured into the ones that are 6 or below, then you probably need to find a new agent. You should not be with that agent. They should be taking their time and being okay that you haven't found your 8, 9, or 10. That's totally fine. They should not be worried that you're taking more of their time. Because look, at the end of the day, yes, it's true. The more time I spend with you going out looking at houses, the more it's costing me. That's less per hour that I'm making, right? That's true. But here's the thing. But that's the way that this business is. That's the way it is. So I shouldn't be, trying to pressure you to make a decision you don't want to make. And the other thing is that, and this is a little bit tougher because once you're in escrow, you're already kind of locked in with your agent. There's no way that you can kind of jump from another agent once you're in escrow. But I will say this though. You may want to ask questions about the escrow process so you can get a feel for them and kind of understand, okay, listen, when we get into a request for repairs, what's your process? What's your strategy? How do you usually deal with asking for repairs? And if you feel like that they're not really taken care with, if they give you an answer that makes you feel like when you get down deep into it, they're probably going to try and find the way to get that deal done faster. That's not the deal you want to be part of. You don't want to work with that person. You want to be working with someone who is going to be in your corner, that is going to be negotiating as hard as they possibly can for as long as it takes, and is not going to try to get into a quote unquote win-win situation. That's sometimes the worst thing that can happen, because win-win isn't necessarily always win-win. Somebody usually loses, right? And so you want to make sure that you're getting taken care of what's important to you. And that's really the most important thing when it comes down into escrow. And then after all is said and done, if you had a good relationship, if you've had a great experience when you're at the end of the real estate process, I hope that you want to keep in touch with me. I hope that, that if you want to talk to me on Facebook, if you want to friend me on Facebook, but here's the thing. If it's been a bad situation, you want to make sure you're with someone who, if you've started the process by being inundated by a drip campaign, you can bet that the end of the process is going to be that too. That they're going to constantly be contacting you. You're going to get knocks on your door. This is a true story. You're going to get a knock on your door. I was just in the neighborhood and I thought I'd drop by this, pot holder that I had, which, it's literally, they have you on a database and they say, today's the day that I go see, Tom, Dick, or Harry. And they knock on the door and they're as uninvited as they were when they were emailing you. So like I said, when you get involved and you're at the end of the process, if you started that way, it's probably going to end that way too. So I hope that you want to be involved with me at the end of the day, but that's something I want to be your decision. Well, that's about it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them for us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. If you have any questions about real estate or you're looking for someone to help you buy or sell a home, remember, I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'd love to help you out. So please email me directly at tom@clarifiedrealty.com or give me a call at 818-335-7662. Don't be shy. Come on, guys, give me a ring. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. Also on our homepage, you'll find links to helpful buyer and seller guides that can give you some great information for starting your home buying or home seller process. So definitely check those out. Here's a new thing. We actually have an Alexa skill. So search the Alexa store for the Clarified Realty Podcast. Add our skill to your daily briefing and get a dose of real estate news and tips every day of the year. Definitely give it a try. It's pretty cool. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle for all three of those are @ClarifiedRealty. Please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comment section on our page. Together we're stronger, so if you have any questions or ways that we can make this podcast better, please let us know. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs. And please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. And just a little disclaimer, I'm licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate. My license number is 017153353. Ron's is?
Guaranteed rate, NMLS 2611, NMLS ID 558706, California and Texas.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. Well, that's about it. Ron, you all good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming by, everybody. And remember, the greatest thing you can ever do is make someone feel at home. Take care. We'll see you next week.